A D N.
It's HeadphonesNeil!
What's up, guys, and welcome back to HeadphonesNeil Reviews. I'm your host, as always, HeadphonesNeil, bringing you my latest set of reviews and updates and all of that good stuff. So, I have a lot of stuff to review for this week. One thing I wanted to get started just because we have a new season coming up in April, and then a quick Knott's Berry Farm update and all that. So, we have a few things one thing I finished, one thing that's ongoing, and two things that I started. So, with all of that being said, let's jump right into it. So, I had a chance to finish watching the 2004 miniseries for Battlestar Galactica, and overall, I want to say it ended very well. It didn't do anything with a lot of fanfare. They rounded it out neatly. Everyone's story was resolved, and it ended on a generally positive note. So, they ended up finding humans, the lost 13th tribe where they were living on Earth. They connected it to present day Earth, that ultimately technology was the undoing, and the Cylons just need some sort of technology for history to repeat itself. So all of that was good, and I enjoyed, overall, as far as the acting goes, I give kudos to Admiral Adama, or Commander Adama, and Gaius Baltar, because Adama, of all the people, was the one trying to make everyone happy, keep everyone alive, make sure everything's working, and he was always met by backstabbing and deceit and political preferences and personal preferences and drama and all of that stuff. And then learning, the people he cared about most, notably in Tai, was a Cylon. You have Boomer as a Cylon. And then dealing with the final five, having to trust the Cylons to deal with them and, survival and all of that stuff. So that was really good. And then Baltar having to do the role of the hallucinations, learning that he's a double agent, having to redeem himself in Lee Adama's eyes and all of that stuff. So all of that was good. And then you're just rounding it out with keeping... So while it was, the understanding of the technology of the time, but also just the thing that stuck with me the whole time was what Adama started off with right off the bat early on in season 1, that the reason he kept Galactica unnetworked was just, in case of catastrophe. He knows that networking the ship with the rest of the fleet in the way that the more modern way would be trouble, and that's exactly what happened. So having to undo that damage was a big pain and hassle. So that's why he was very adamant about it. And then also tying it in later with the Cylon resurrection ship is a kind of cloud storage for the Cylons. Finding it was hard, getting to it and destroying it was also equally hard, but once they did it, it was done. And then even, the Cylons having a distributed knowledge of how to recreate it was particularly forward thinking for the time. So that all just fell into place. It all worked. And for me, once I finished an episode, I wanted to see the next episode and the next episode and keep going and just see how the stories progress, see where they go, see where they went, and see the ultimate resolution to all the stories. So I definitely recommend watching the show, and I see why the show is held up in high regard as far as being a very well-rated sci-fi show. With that being said, I got to thinking that, if I'm able to watch the original 1978 Battlestar Galactica somewhere before I get into Caprica, let me see if I can do that, and then I'll go into Caprica to see how that ties in together with everything. And so the simple answer is that if you buy the season somewhere on a streaming service, you can watch it that way. But as luck would have it, it is also available on the Internet Archive. So I'm watching it from there. I'll have or I don't know if I saved the link, so if I find the link, I'll share it, but it's available on the Internet Archive, the full like 24, 25 episodes or whatever. So I'm watching it that way. Just because I was curious, I'm like, let me see what they did. Why would they redo this show? Like, what's up with it and all that. So as of this episode, I've gotten through the series premiere, the first 3 episodes, and I can see why they improved it. You know, the original version is very 70s and 80s. The acting is pretty much of the time. The clothing is okay, also very much of its time. Ship design, exteriors are fine, like it kind of makes sense and it works, but the interiors are very like Star Trek The Next Generation. So for me, like watching those first few episodes, it feels very much like Star Trek meets Miami Vice. So I'm gonna see how the rest of the episodes go, and you know how they hold up. How does the acting go? How do they deal with the Cylons, which are also designs of the time, but they're also kind of functional too, and they're not terrible, but you know I kind of want to see where they go with it. So that's kind of my first initial impression, that is kind of just Star Trek meets Miami Vice. So we'll see how it goes, and so once I'm done with that, I'll give Caprica a watch. But that's kind of where I'm at with it right now. That it's definitely of its time. I can see why they redid it. The Edward James almost Adama has a much more commanding presence and performance than the one in the original version. Same thing with even Starbuck and Apollo and all the other actors and actresses. Like, they improved on that quite a bit, to the point where I can see it feels like they legitimately took the original version and detailed it out and were like, okay, what do we need to fix? How do we need to improve all this stuff? How do we make this better, more impactful? And not just to say, how do we make this more modern, but how do we modernize it but keep the look and feel of the original, and don't change what we don't need to change, just improve what does and take it from there. So that's kind of where it's at. So we'll see how it goes, and I'll provide updates as I finish the episodes and progress updates and all of that usual stuff. The next note, because we have Andor Season 2 coming in April, I got to thinking that let me rewatch Andor Season 1, get caught up on everything that happened, make sure I have all that information handy, and then I'm also going to rewatch Rogue One just to see, by the time we get to Andor Season 2, how they tie it all together, because we're going to have a few, or at least one in the form of Krennic in Andor Season 2, so I'm watching Season 1, and one of the things I like about it, and I'm sure I liked about it at the time when it first came out, was, in the beginning we have that conversation between Luthen and Cassian about how Cassian was able to steal the device thingy, and Cassian straight up tells him that the Empire doesn't expect a infiltration from within. They're so full of themselves, so sure of themselves, so fat and lazy and all that they wouldn't expect this and wouldn't see it coming, so it's so much easier to get things like this done. So that sets up the rest of the kind of the basic theme of the series, and then also introduces, once we get to the ISB episodes, that now that they're starting to connect the dots, and you have individuals connecting the dots, that hey, something actually concerted is going on here, and you have people actively trying to make it look like it's unrelated incidents. So something is going on here against the Empire, and it needs to be fixed. And then you have the conversation with Luthen and Saw about selling those weapons, and who's staying true to what, and meeting the right people and making those connections. So that was good. And then of course at the end of the season, which I haven't gotten to in my rewatch, the whole speech by Luthen about what he's losing, what he's given up, and all that. So that was the final chef's kiss to the season of what's what people have to do behind the scenes that not everyone necessarily knows about sees. It gives more impact to Mon Mothma's quiet tone as far as what's going on in Rogue One. So there's that, and so I anticipate having the second season or the first season done by next week. So I'll do another follow-up review there, and then get right into Rogue One. So with that being said, I am continuing my gameplay of Knights of the Old Republic. So for this week, Dantooine is done, so we now know the rest of the mission for the game. We have to find the star maps to get to the Star Forge. So I went to the first planet for Tatooine, got that star map. Relatively straightforward planet, as I mentioned last week, one of the easier levels, so I recommend doing that first. The Griff story arc was nice. The Bastila's mom story arc is nice. When they actually initiate properly, it goes a lot more smoother than it did in this gameplay, but there's certain ways to get around it if possible, but still, like, when they start properly and finish properly, they're nice. And then in this case, I had Calo Nord and Darth Bandon both show up on Tatooine. Usually in my gameplays, Darth Bandon doesn't show up until a couple of planets later, so usually on Manan when I'm leaving the underwater base, which is a more cramped space. So in this case, having him show up on Tatooine is a lot better and a lot easier to deal with him because it's a more open space to take him out. And then as of this game recording, I'm in the middle of Kashyyyk, so dealing with the Zalbar story arc, and his brother, the Zerka slavers, and all of that stuff. Ultimately, we go into the Shadowlands to find Jolie Bindo, and then also deal with Zalbar and his brother's dad to either have the Zerka go away and have the Wookiees to go back to your cause for the light side, or support Zalbar's brother to keep the slavers there if you're going to go on the dark side. And then nothing major to talk about as far as Yavin Station as of yet. We'll get a little bit more update once we're done with Kashyyyk, and then once we're done with Manan and Korriban later. So we'll have that update, but just progressing. If you do Tatooine and Kashyyyk first, you kind of have the easier way of getting through the game because the two planets are relatively easy. Tatooine helps practice with a wide open and long run times as far as going around big, wide, expansive areas that are in the open. Kashyyyk confines it a little bit, but they are longer runs as far as the Great Walkway on the top and then the Shadowlands on the bottom. So once you do Tatooine first, you're kind of used to it. Kashyyyk just becomes remembering where everything is, because they kind of fill in a lot more of the empty spaces with random things to do and what to look for and all of that. But it'll also be good practice for later once we get to the Geno Haraden quest if you're playing on the dark side. So that's all there is to say for that. And then for this week, I did have a chance to do a quick visit to Knott's Berry Farm. Just an off-season visit to hang out with friends and that kind of thing. So grab lunch, go on a couple rides. It was a beautiful day, and especially after the rain. So took a couple of pictures so you guys can see how nice and clear it was. It made for easy photography in the open and all that. So nothing much to say. This is the off-season before we get into the Boysenberry Festival. So we'll have a themed post about that for next month. So that's all there is for this particular episode. So as far as next week's review, it'll be a continuation for whatever I get through for Battlestar Galactica 1978, Andor Season 1, and Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic. If anything else comes up, I'll also include that in the review. But the YouTube channel is youtube.com/PatelN01 for all the gameplay videos. HeadphonesNeil.reviews for past episodes, supporting the show, subscriptions, and all of that. If you pay a little bit of attention to the website, I have made some of those updates that I wanted to do that I mentioned, I want to say a few months ago. So easier links to get to stuff, simplified the headers and stuff like that a little bit. So things like that are now up on that site, so definitely check it out. Feedback is welcome, as well as the notable social media sites I'm on, but at the moment I am giving specific focus to Blue Sky to check there, but I'm still on Mastodon and Twitter. But that is all for this particular episode, so if you have any questions, comments, feedback, or anything like that, all of the so you can comment notably on Blue Sky, but like I said, Twitter and Mastodon and all that, so there's that. But the website is headphonesneil.reviews. YouTube is youtube.com/PatelN01. But that is all for this particular episode. Thanks for tuning in, and until next time.